All right, what's up, rock stars inside of the Move, Think, Smile, Burnout to Badass group? How are you guys today? I am Adam Von Enns, and I'm here with the lovely, awesome founder of Move, Think, Smile, Elia Fasharan.
Hello, everybody. We are so excited to be here today. We got some
And
good stuff on tap.
yeah, so we planned this one very special for a reason. Today is exactly 14 days after everybody officially started the new year. We don't count January 1st, okay? Because January 1st is like, oh my God, we just got through Christmas. We just got through the holidays. We just had a party last night, or we just brought in the new year, and I'm waking up and most people have the day off, and they start doing some things. It's like, okay, starting to let, the new year and the Christmas and all the detoxing begin. But it's actually January 2nd when most people actually start their New Year's resolutions, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually 14 days that the statistics show from Statista and Statistic Brain is when people start to fail today.
Yeah.
So,
And the most interesting thing we learned from those stats was that, 20 years ago, 75% of American adults made at least one New Year's resolution. And now, Adam, that number has dropped to what?
45%.
Yeah.
So today what we're really talking about is the death of resolutions.
Yes.
And Elia is pointing out a very important fact here. So 20 years ago, when you look at adult Americans, 75% of them made resolutions, at least one resolution. A lot of people have made more than one. Today, as of, I think it was the stats that were taken last year, that's dropped to 45% of adult Americans are making a resolution. And what's funny is if you start looking down into the age groups, it's typically people over 40, which means the younger generation, right? Or the millennials. And I don't know if you guys know this, but millennials can range right now anywhere from age, I think it's 24 to 38, right?
Yep.
So the millennials aren't these snot-nosed brats in high school. They're actually real people, real adults with real jobs and real education. But where we're seeing the drop-off is we're seeing a drop-off. You're definitely seeing a decrease in people over 40, and then the people under 40 just aren't making them.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of theories out there, but to me, what I see happening is that people have lost their sense of hopefulness. It's like, why bother? That's one thing. The other thing is, people have so much going on. They have so much to do that it's just like, they're like, yeah, I could set that, but by, day 14, like I've gotten thwarted off of my task list. I've sort of lost focus. I'm totally overwhelmed with everything that I have to do. So why even bother setting? And then, I think the other thing is really we get stuck on the end result, but not who we want to be as we move towards the goal. So again, just not being able to see that happen, not being able to see that through. So I think a lot of people have been like, why bother? Why set a resolution and why let myself down?
Right. So most people of the 45%, so 45 out of 100 people are making resolutions these days. 53% of them are to save more money. 43% of them are to somehow get in shape better, usually losing weight, followed by number 3, have more sex, then travel more, then learn a new skill. So it's really interesting when you start looking at the resolutions.
Yeah.
And what is and I think I know why, the people are failing. And so we know that day number 14 into the New Year's resolutions, and we start seeing the drop off. It starts going here, 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 here. And then what's absolutely insane is by February 14th, the second week in February, 80% of people have simply given up on their New Year's resolutions. They've completely failed. They've said, screw it. It's just not going to happen, or something's gotten in the way, or they become overwhelmed, or they've got some anxiety going on. And I think it's because of the resolutions they're actually setting.
Yeah, that's another, yep.
Right? I think it's because they're actually setting resolutions that are focusing on the process and not necessarily what they really want. They think that if I save more money, I'm going to get whatever it is I want over here, whether it be I'm going to get a bigger house, I'm going to have more free time because I'm going to have financial security, or whatever that is. They think that if they lose weight, that they're going to all of a sudden have all this energy and they're all of a sudden going to be this fitness master. And so they're really focusing on the process. And I have watched so many people, and it happens this time of year, and it also happens with people who get into their 40s too. That's why one of the most common injuries among people in their 40s is running. And the reason is because you hit your midlife and you're like, oh my God, I got to get back into shape. I'm fatigued. And you haven't run in a long time, but your brain still thinks you're 20 years old, and you go out there and all of a sudden you've got leg injuries and joint problems because you haven't strengthened yourself properly. And so people go out there and they run, and then that causes them pain, and then they hate themselves and they're like, I don't want to run. That stuff sucks. And then they give up on their goal. So their goal was never to run in the first place. Their goal was to become fit. But I think what people are doing is they're focusing on the process and not actually the end result. And I think that's why most resolutions fail. Ellie, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's an extremely valid point. And, the way I take it is the next level deeper is focusing on who you need to be in order to reach that goal is more important than actually reaching the goal. It's kind of like you're saying, it's just a different way of what you're saying as far as, the goal was never really to be a runner in your example. The goal was to be healthy, to be fit. And we got to be willing to change our strategies if, we get those leg pains or we injure ourselves
right. But why is the goal to even be healthy and fit? Like, even that's just a big, broad thing. And the real reason is because you want to wake up feeling good, right? Yeah. You want to feel like you're making progress instead of sitting around in a career where you're like, well, this is more stressful and less rewarding than I planned. How did this happen?
And so many people I talk to just feel like they're not really living. Like, literally, we have the living dead, right? They're like, I'm going through the motions, I'm waking up, I'm doing what I need to do, but I don't feel alive. And so many people we talk to who are struggling with burnout, anxiety, and fatigue, they just want to get back to feeling good again. They want to feel alive.
Right. And I think so many people, one of the reasons we've dropped from 75% to 45% of people actually making resolutions, because they're waking up on New Year's Day and they're on autopilot. I don't know if I would go so far as to call it hopelessness. I think some people have gotten to that point where I just can't, this is just the way life is. I'm just going to accept it. Things suck. Yeah. That's not the case, guys. And, if you're waking up on autopilot and you just don't have any motivation or ambition to actually do something badass in your life,
it's time to say the heck with stress, the heck with burnout, the heck with anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, it's time. It's like, so okay, so let's go back to the stat real quick, right? So 80% fail by February 14th. That means 20% keep moving on, right? So by June, 11 to 12% quit, and only 9.2% people who actually make a resolution actually succeed. That means 4 out of 100 American adults are having a positive change in their life. Only 4 out of 100, or if you want to break it down and you like fractions, that's 1 out of 25.
Right.
Only one
that's
out of
terrible.
25. Yeah, one out of 25 people are actually making conscious positive change in their life based on New Year's resolutions.
Yeah. And there's just nothing worse of just I think like we said too, trying to make this promise to yourself. A lot of the people we really speak to, they're, above 35 and beyond, and, they've had some living under their belt, and they're like, hey, I've fallen into the thing of making my resolutions. And again, feeling like they don't have maybe the resources or the support or even the focus to be able to get there is really deflating, because you want to change your life. You don't want to feel like crap. You don't want to be run down and exhausted all the time. You want to achieve some really cool stuff, especially too, as you start to reach 40, you're starting to realize that your time to do these amazing things and to really live in a kind of full, healthy space, or your opportunity to be healthy, is starting to run out, because you know that your body is going to start breaking down after you hit the 40 mark, and as you kind of go on beyond, is you can't wear yourself down like you used to in your 20s and in your
Right.
early 30s.
Right. Or
Yeah.
no. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, we just got to look more on, the failing part. So the failing part, or people are not even making them because they just don't think they can. And I'm pretty sure that the only reason that the majority of people who actually make a resolution are doing it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've been told since birth, every New Year's, what's your resolution? What are you going to do this year? What goals do you have? How are you going to make it better? And most of us say either I'm going to save more money, make more money, or I'm going to get in better shape. That's what most of
Mm-hmm.
us say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we go into the new year saying, yeah, that's my resolution. And we wake up on January 2nd. And by January 14th, we're like, F that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times, it's about being connected to why you're doing it as well. I think for a lot of people who are struggling with burnout, they've really lost the connection to why they even want anything, or why they should try, or what kind of impact that they're going to have. For a lot of people, that exhaustion leads you to not giving it your best, not really trying because the energy isn't there. And so it's so important though, and it's so frustrating because you want to do this. You have an impact to make with your career, with your kids, with your loved ones, but you don't have the energy to do it, and that sucks. That feels like Chinese water torture in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
you just have this constant nagging, this constant exhaustion that is just like, you have a dream. Oh, nope, sorry. Let me just squash that for you right now because you're too tired.
Right. So this just just what this does is basically New Year's resolution right off the bat. You're feeding lack of confidence. You're feeding self-doubt. That's what New Year's resolutions are doing these days. And I think that's why most people have stopped making them. And I think we're going to see that 45% drop even further as the years go on. And as we lose, as the greatest generation, the baby boomers, they start working their way out, and I'm a Gen Xer and so are you, Elliot. And so we're coming up in, and then the millennials are coming in and they're burning out at alarming rates, at absolutely alarming rates. And they're doing this in their 20s. What we're seeing with people in their 40s.
Yeah, and one thing I harp a lot about, and I talk a lot about, is just, we have a responsibility to ourselves, but also our children, to really set good examples for managing. Well, not really managing, because again, that's not what we really want, but for conquering and really transforming the way that they handle stress and burnout. Because as I've said before, it's like, okay, maybe you're just getting by, but your kids are watching you. They're watching those patterns. They will repeat those patterns. And the crazy thing is we need the younger generations to help us as we get older. But what will they be able to do if they're just burnt out and crispy and just as run down as we are? How are we going to help ourselves?
Right. And I think another thing is, technology has made it, things like email, Slack, smartphones have made it so that employees are always accessible.
Yeah, always
right?
on.
Always able to labor, even after they've left the physical workplace, and that's why so many people have a hard time unplugging. It's like, because that shit is always in your face. Your career becomes your life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between my life is my career, right? Because you love your work so much, right? That's not even a job to you. But when your career becomes your life, that's a whole different thing. And that's that's what's causing insomnia at night, because people just can't shut the brain off. Or I know some people who can fall asleep like that. I'm not one of those guys. But they'll wake up at 1 a.m. and they'll spend 2 to 3 hours just trying to go back to sleep.
Yeah. One thing I hear a lot of people say too is like errand paralysis. The to-do list paralysis, in the sense that you look at that, you have these grand goals, but then you look at all this minutia that you have to do, and you literally just start to shut down. The overwhelm kicks in, and then it's just like, okay, It's like I've heard people say, they've had things on their to-do list year after year after year, like even small things. Like, what was it? Actually, in the article we were talking about with millennials, where a woman said, I had a package that I needed to send back that sat in the corner of my office for a year. Right. And we can't even accomplish some of these small mundane tasks. So I think the brain says, why even bother going for something bigger?
It's, and then you throw on top, even though the recession was in 2008, right? That had an impact on so many people in so many ways. And our modality, our amygdala in the brain fires in, Ellie. And what does that do? Tell people about this. Give us some scientific nerdy shit.
Yeah, so the amygdala is really the fear center of your brain, and it's one of the oldest centers in the brain. And when that gets kicked on, you are not thinking rationally or logically. You are 100% in survival mode, and you are making decisions that are not necessarily the smartest decisions, right? I mean, and a lot of times that's getting kicked on for super small things. Again, I'm sure you've heard it. A lot of people talk about the whole analogy that, oh, we were running from tigers and, we needed that then. But now our tigers had turned into that box we haven't mailed for a year, or that conversation we have to have with someone in our business, that tough conversation. And, we're really easily triggered into this fight or flight mode, which is why a lot of people are burning out, because that fight or flight is kicking on all the time, where we don't know how to handle the speed of things.
Right. So what Ellie is saying in basic terms is the fight or flight security system that we have built into our brains was built for when tigers were chasing you. Okay? They're not built for modern urban stresses, right? But when you get stressed at work, or if somebody gives you a shitty critique on your presentation or something like that, you immediately go into either you want to kick their ass or you want to run away. And that's what usually causes the fear, frustration, anger, worry. And it's like we care so much about how we care so much about things that really just don't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
And
because we tie it to our performance, we tie it to money. Right. And with technology, going back to technology, we're being told all over the place, it's the brand called you. And the only way to build the brand called you, if you're in business or if you're an employee and you want to go up the ranks, is to get out there and be seen and to post and to do this stuff. So you're always on the clock. You're never off the clock. You're never off the clock because it's the brand called you. And so we think we have to do all these things. We think we've got to keep up with, posting videos and pictures and Instagram and all this craziness. And, I know when we had our business, what would we do when we came home?
Yeah, we just wanted to stare at a blank wall, at least I did, or I just wanted to fall into Netflix and be able to just escape into a whole nother world. I didn't have anything left.
Right. So like a woman we talked to the other day, she's like, I just want to go home and let the TV watch me.
Yeah.
I just want to go home and watch the TV, let the TV watch me. But, even though we wanted to do that, we were so busy frigging Instagramming and Snapchatting and blogging and doing all this stuff, we could just never unplug.
And we were focused on a lot of the external stuff. We didn't take the time to really figure out who we wanted to be. We were stuck in the classic cycle of we have become so accomplishment oriented, right? Even children these days, you see them, it's like, oh no, you're not going to take piano lessons just to take piano lessons and enjoy it. You're going to take it because this is going to be your future. And you're going to be the next blah, blah, blah. And this is how you're going to pay the bills. And this is how you're going to do this. Nothing is done just for the sake of doing it. It's all for the sake of accomplishment. And we get into trouble. We get into a lot of trouble that way. It's such a fast way into burnout when it's nothing but the outside external accomplishment and perceived power that comes from that.
Now, Ellie, you said something earlier. You said something about the heck with stress. Tell us some more about that.
Yeah, so the heck with stress is really about kicking all of that to the curb. It's really about understanding, who do I have to be in order to conquer burnout, crush anxiety and fatigue? Who do I have to be in order to make that happen? Not all the things that I need to do in order to get to that point, not all the things that I need to listen to, or the things I have to change about myself, or the people I have to listen to, but who do you need to be? And this is something that you have to feed daily. You have to remember this every day, because that overwhelm is going to creep in and take you down. And again, if you've been struggling with burnout, overwhelm has been a daily part of your life for years, more than likely. Yeah. So you've got to really make it simple. Otherwise, you will never get out.
You know what else is interesting is that I also just read an article on what married people want, the resolutions they want their spouses to make.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty interesting. And yeah. It's like both men and women, and it's a pretty significant percentage, want their husband or wife to make a resolution to lose weight for 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a big percentage.
Yeah.
And 13% of women want their spouses to create a budget.
Yeah. 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 And, the weight factor is huge. Tons of people that we speak to, weight, I would say the majority of people actually end up gaining a lot of weight, anywhere from, 40 to 50 or 60 pounds, because of burnout, anxiety, and fatigue and what it's doing to their bodies. But we do have some people as well, and this is myself, where if I get really, really in my stage of burnout, I lost a ton of weight. But we see this happening in the extremes. We see this weight coming on or being lost, depending on kind of what your body type is and how you respond to stress. But, when that comes on as well, people feel lethargic. The fatigue that they're feeling emotionally and from the stress gets compounded with the fatigue of the weight gain. Mm-hmm. And again, it feels like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. And it's really, really tough to do that by yourself. But you have this thing where stress tends to isolate you. You tend to want to say, okay, I can do this on my own. I need to manage this on my own. Or you don't want to let anyone in. You want to keep up this appearance that you can take care of yourself, that you can do this, you've got this managed, especially for people, really career-driven people, which are those that we really work with, or business owners. They feel like that's being seen as weak, or that something is wrong with them, or that people will worry about doing business with them if they know that they're struggling. And this, again, just adds on to the stressors and the pressure to maintain something that you are not.
Now, Elia, you're never going to believe who's watching. An old friend of ours, Michael Campanero.
Ah, sweet.
Mike, what's up? Bye. What's happening? And he just commented, he just said, where is it at? How can I get this up here? There we go. Think they don't set enough micro goals. So Mike is saying, I think what Mike is saying is do you think they're not succeeding because they're not setting enough small goals, enough small wins? Elliot, what do you think about that?
I think that celebrating is absolutely a huge, huge component of succeeding. And Mike, you're totally right. And this is where people have to be careful about not getting overwhelmed with the micro goals, but really what you hit on is the importance of celebrating the small stuff. And this is one thing that high achievers tend to not do, which is not celebrate until they get to the end. And even then, a lot of times that accomplishment will often feel hollow. So you got to really keep your momentum going forward. And one way to do that really is to celebrate the small wins, because if you don't celebrate those, you're probably not going to celebrate the big ones.
But if you're setting the wrong goal, the micro wins don't mean anything.
Yeah.
We've seen so many professionals and executives and business owners make really big, bold moves in the wrong direction. They've set these goals, the wrong goals, right? They think this is going to give them that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't, because their mind, their success mechanism is so corrupted from being in a state of just overworking, being in a state of not being able to unplug, being in a state of burnout slowly decaying them away, right? And they all just try to power through stuff. And it's crazy because when you ask them about burnout, they're like, I'm not burnt out. Burnout happens to like attorneys and bigwigs, and you know, and they imagine this guy sitting on the Boston Bridge smoking a cigarette, but he's not even smoking; it's just burning down to the butt, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where burnout came from. That's legitimately where the term came from. But what they don't realize is that burnout is a process of decay, and it's a slow killer, and it gets into your brain, and it lasts and it usually takes, you know, we work with people where they've been dealing with it for 10 to 12 years. In fact, we just enrolled a client last night who has been dealing with burnout and stress in his job for the past 12 years. For the past 12 years.
Yeah.
And I thought we were lame. I mean, we dealt with burnout. You know, our burnout started easily in, I would say, 2009. Looking back at it, and we took it all the way up through 2015.
Yeah. And this is where endurance is actually hurting you, right? Can you imagine if this person places that amount of endurance and gusto towards putting their health first and being healthy and really moving the needle forward on that, versus constantly this endurance to endure that for so many years. It is fascinating to me. And, you know, that we really need to learn to flip that. That's actually a strength. It's just flipped in the wrong direction.
Right. So yeah, and what's even funnier is like watching people who are super fit, right? Really nice people, right? Lots of energy, lots of stamina, lots of endurance.
Burnout.
Get their asses kicked.
Yeah.
Get their asses handed to them, time and time again. It's like they're in the boxing ring with Tyson, and Tyson throws that one punch, knocks him out, and they just get back up, and you're like, I'm fine. Dude, your skull is broken. And then he comes in with a left. He gets back up, I'm fine. No, your eyeball's over there. You know?
Yeah.
And it's funny watching these guys, you know, completely ignore the signs of how much the overwhelm and just the running around and the anxiety over trying to hit certain goals for your career, and how that just ruins their relationships at home.
And this is because burnout has actually become the new norm. We can make a comfort zone out of the worst conditions. We can make a norm out of the worst conditions. And that's why it's so important to have other people's feedback and input and reflection, because it's really tough to see our own behaviors. It's really tough to see how we actually are trapping ourselves and making our situation worse. And this is why, again, stress will try to seclude you, and it's the worst thing you could do, because again, you won't be able to see, you know, the trees through the forest kind of thing. And
so
go ahead.
Right. So here's what ends up happening, right? So you go through it, and then one day you wake up and it's 10:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and you're on the couch, right? You're looking at your shelf of self-help books, right? You're looking at I'm going to show my age here, your cassette tapes, and your CD collection of seminars and retreats and whatever you got from, you know, those guys, you know, about achieving and psychology and, you know, how to, whatever it is, sell better, or make it be more productive and all the habits and stuff. And you're like, I have all this shit. Why am I on the couch?
Yeah.
How come I don't even, somebody just sent me a text and said, hey, dude, I'll pay you $5,000 if you come do this easy project for me. And you're just like, I don't want to. I don't want to, but yet I'm going to sit back here and be angry and frustrated over usually finances, right? Or tension at home, or your health has just gotten to the point that your brain has gotten used to and has put you down into flight, right? The amygdala has kicked in, and its answer to deal with the stress in your life, it's not a tiger chasing you, right? Is to hide, is to just lay down and give up. And that's when people start dying.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, they start losing life.
Well, let's talk about, so I wanted to cover 3 things. So how you can break out of this, how you can stop the slow death of your resolutions and, not let this take you down. And so it's really, really important to remember that, to do new things from the mindset of the person who hasn't achieved that goal yet is really, really tough. So you literally have to create a new identity. You have to create a new version of yourself who's going to be the person that hits that goal. And I like to say it's like version 2.0, badass version you. And the way that you do this is you've got to create a mental image in your head of who this new version of yourself is, how that person looks, how they behave, and you've got to make sure that you start making decisions from that person's mindset, not the mindset from 2018, right?
Right.
I always joke, it's like sometimes I catch myself doing these things and I'm like, oh, that was so 2017 or so 2016. That was me when I used to make those decisions, but I don't want to make those anymore. I need to make this from 2019 version of Elia. So you've really got to get connected, create a mental image in your head of who this person is, what they look like, how they behave, so that when you need to make a decision, you go to that person that you've generated in yourself to decide how you should move forward. The other thing is you've got to really write out, how does this person handle burnout? How do they handle obstacles? How do they handle the stress in your path? So that you have that as a guideline or something that you can go back to when you start to feel that overwhelm kick in and those old habits kick in and you want to run away from the resolution that you just made. And then the third thing that's really, really key is you've got to spend more time focused on who you want to be instead of what you're doing. Now, I know a lot of people are going to balk at that because, again, it's like, well, I need to do all of these things. And again, I'm not saying don't accomplish anything, but I'm saying make who you want to be more important than what it is you're trying to do. Because if you start there with a solid foundation, you're going to have a lot more success at reaching that resolution than if you just start with all the action-oriented stuff that's on the outside. That's trying to get external power before you have internal power. And you have to start with internal power or you are going to burn out. And I can't say that enough. And you're going to have to fight the urge to do it the opposite way, because that's the way you've been doing it the entire time, which is why you are where you are.
Elliot, yeah, I like how you say, if you want it, you really need to create a new identity, and the way to do that is to unleash your inner badass. I mean, everybody's born with one. All right.
Yep.
So if you're sitting around thinking, well, I was just born this way and that's just the way things are, I'm going to call bullshit on that one because that's not true. Science has proven again and again, especially modern health science, that you can rewire your brain, literally rewire your brain with neuroplasticity. You can physically watch the neurons unleash from one part of the brain and create a whole new identity, right?
And we are literally walking patterns of behavior. I think people really need to understand, we think we're so autonomous and we think that we're so in charge of ourselves. And yes, we can be, but we also have to acknowledge that we are walking patterns. We pattern things from other people, from our parents, from society.
We are creatures of habit, but we have something that no other creature has. Like almost every creature on the planet is a creature of habit, right?
Yep.
Pick an animal and it kind of does the same things all the time. It kind of eats the same things all the time. It kind of goes to bed at the same things. It kind of hangs out in the same place. We're all creatures of habit. But the difference between those creatures and us humans is that we have dominion over free will. We actually get to choose how our life is. We get to choose how we want to wake up in the morning. But the problem is the brain likes efficiency, right? And so once you develop a habit by sticking in a situation that sucks for too long, you don't know any other way out, and it's really hard to do it by yourself. That's why you've got piles of self-help books. That's why you've got piles of programs over here, because when you try to do it yourself, right? Or as like Elliot likes to say, DIY, do yourself in.
Yeah. Yep.
When you do, that's what you're doing. When you try DIY with this, it usually turns into DIY, and things just don't happen. And Elia, tell them the difference. Like, let them know that this is not the same thing as positive thinking. What you're talking about, you're talking about people thinking different and creating a new identity.
Yeah, so it's not, because especially, I know this from where I was, and I know this from talking to other people. When you hear positive thinking and you're burnt out and exhausted and as you're struggling with anxiety, you just want to like slam the door in their face, right? Because you're so far away from positive thinking that it just feels like an insult.
Yeah.
And so, and you will resist trying to get yourself out of that space because it feels so far away. So what I like to say is, screw positive thinking in a kind way, but screw it and really focus on, you've got to be resourceful. Just being resourceful.
Yeah.
And that's way more accessible when you're in a negative space than trying to reach for positivity. It's kind of like saying you're going to go out and do the long jump, and it's like asking yourself to jump 3 feet versus a whole 10 feet right off the bat with positivity. Is just get resourceful.
Right. So the moral of that is positive thinking is obsolete. It doesn't work. It does. Keeping a positive mind is just merely a coping mechanism. And what that does is that just masks over the crazy stuff that you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, we really want to specify this, the difference between, there's a difference between optimism and positivity, but we're talking about kind of the positive thinking where it's kind of Pollyannish. You can tell if you just feel frustrated by the idea of that positive thought. Then you're in a space where you need to notch it down and you need to go for resourceful versus positivity. And so let's just wrap this up. I want to just recap real quick the 3 things that we said that you really need to do. And that is, number 1, really get connected, create a mental image of how this badass version of you in 2019 who's going to conquer, these resolutions and go for these goals, what that person looks like, how they behave, how they think, so that anytime an obstacle kind of comes your way, you know how you're going to handle that. You know immediately what the decision is you need to make, because here's the thing, conditions are going to pop up, but those conditions are irrelevant to who you want to be. Okay? They might feel like they're about to destroy your resolution, but they cannot destroy who you want to be. And really spend a lot of time focused on that. And you're going to have a lot more success in being able to wipe out the burnout, the anxiety, fatigue, and whatever resolutions that you set for yourself. Whether it's taking that trip, changing careers, starting a new business, selling your old business, whatever career-driven focus you have, that's how you're going to get there.
Right. So I think the moral to all this story is, instead of making a resolution, because they're dead, resolutions have dead. They haven't worked. They haven't worked forever, right? The stats are nothing new, right? It's always fluctuated between 7 and 9% of people who've actually made resolutions actually keep them. And it's because resolutions, that's not what you want. If you really want to start thriving at home and having a kick-ass career, if you really want to start being the hero at work and with your family, and you're tired of just dealing with the minutia that's going through your head, Elia, what can they do?
Yeah, we welcome you and invite you to book a call with us. You can go to movethinksmile.com/talk. And as we've shared before, we hop on the phone with people for about 45 minutes and really just help you dial in, what is the kind of root cause of what's burning you out. And a lot of times it's not what you think it is. And really getting clear on how you're going to get to where you want to go. And the most important thing, like Adam mentioned, is how can you start feeling alive again, feeling really great, feeling like your best self? Because this is something, it might sound really simplistic, but is what we hear over and over and over from people that we talk to, is that they just want to feel good again.
Right.
And that's where we start. That's so key in order for you to have the impact that you want to make on your family, on your career, on your life, on the world. It's so important. And we're firm believers that you are not put here to fail. You are not put here to burn out, because you have something amazing to offer, but you can't do that from an anxious, exhausted, burnt out place.
No, you can't. You can only do it from a healthy state. And there's a reason why this group is called Burnout to Badass.
Yeah. Yes.
If you're ready to start achieving peak performance in your life, and what we mean by that, because peak performance is that's a broad term. It's like peak performance with your time, with your freedom, right? And you want to escape that prison that you probably don't even realize that you're in. If you want to achieve peak performance with your energy, which means you're waking up and you're productive, and in what takes people 8 hours to do, you're kicking butt in 2 hours, and then actually doing something new, and you're making progress and you're making headway. And if you want to stop, spending the money that you're making on coping mechanisms, right? Obvious ones like meditation or medications and therapy, but the not so obvious ones like stress eating, binge shopping, drinking, whatever it is, your caffeine, which is huge. People don't realize that coffee has become a stress mechanism, a coping mechanism to make it through, right? Mm-hmm. And you're tired of basically wasting your money on that crap. And you know that if you just had a little bit more productivity, if you had a little bit more confidence and you had the right direction and the right focus, that you could actually, make more money, right? Like ask yourself, what could you make another $250 a week? If you could, do you realize that's $12,000 a year just by taking care of yourself and feeling better?
Yeah, the costs of burning out are huge. I look back at everything that it cost me, and it's part of the reason I'm so passionate about this mission, because for me, I truly believe that our obstacles can be launching pads for success, and that we can turn our suffering into greatness. And there's a reason for a lot of things, and so it's really how can we take this situation where we are now and turn it into something amazing. And the fastest way to do it is to do it with a team, do it with help, do it. You can't push that boulder up a hill alone. So we really encourage you to reach out, and we will be back here on Friday, I believe. And so we will see you guys again later this week. And we also have some great interviews coming up next week. So stay tuned to all the stuff that we have going on. And Adam, is there anything else?
Nope. If you guys are ready to stop suffering and suck, and you're ready to start feeling really good, and you're not sure how to get there, give us a call. It's free. It's 45 minutes. What have you got to lose? MoveThinkSmile.com/talk. We'll see you guys on Friday.
All right, guys. Take care.